Well, our moms think we're funny.
Oh, alright, here, this one minute.
Hey everyone, I'm Acomi.
Oh. No, they're gonna have to wait, dude, because I said just one moment and you thought you were gonna rush me into it, but I'm not. I'm still gonna finish. I'm gonna finish my yawn and then I'm gonna start.
Welcome to Our Moms Think We're Funny.
Okay.
How you doing, Turk?
Okay, I think I'm doing alright.
Good.
I am doing pretty darn good. I actually had a fairly decent burger, so I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, they were. I mean, mine was like dripping grease like crazy. So,
but yeah, I think
but it was delicious. Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, what are we gonna talk about today?
Well, during dinner we watched the Savage Dragon cartoon.
Yes, we did, and boy, wasn't that a cinematic masterpiece?
It was not good.
No, it was not.
I mean, that's going to be a hard no from me. There was talent and voices attached to it that I absolutely love, and they could not salvage it.
Yeah, it's the voice for Savage Dragon is all wrong.
That's the thing. It's Jim Cumming. He's great. He's such a good voice actor, but not for Savage Dragon.
No, it just sounds wrong. It doesn't fit him at all. It's bad.
Here's the thing. He voiced Dr. Robotnik in the Saturday Morning Sonic cartoon. He's perfect with that. He's so sinister and intimidating. Of course, he voices Winnie the Pooh. He voices Pete from the Goofy cartoons. Guy's got range and talent, but man, he just cannot do Savage Dragon.
No, the voice needed to be deeper, and they weren't giving me a deep voice. I needed something more than that.
He just kept throwing out these shitty one-liners the entire time. So, like, he'll be arresting a bad guy, and the bad guy will pull out a knife, and he'll be like, "Oh, well, you're a cut above the rest."
Wow, that was a good one.
It's not good.
That sounded just like one of those. You're fighting a cop. I guess that's where you pull out a pig sticker. Like, it's like, oh, stop.
And then, like, one of the bad guys will be, like, a dog mutant. It'll be like, "Down, boy."
Oh, yeah, it's bad. And the cops don't carry guns. And you've got a guy on there that's such a weak ass pussy of a cop that he makes Barney Fife look like Dirty Harry.
What would make him a more tolerable character is if he was voiced by something like along the lines of like Chris from Family Guy. Just like, I think we need backup up here.
And it's 2 seasons, man.
Yeah, those 2 episodes felt like an eternity.
And I'm not trying to like pit creative teams against one another, but as bad as it is, the Wildcats cartoon is so much better than that.
I liked the Wildcats cartoon. I was thoroughly entertained by that. It wasn't good, but I liked it. But this,
one and only Wildcats.
But yeah,
even with the animation clipping into other cells, it's still.
Yeah, that was a truly golden age for animation. But yeah, so I thought, you know what?
Golden like shower.
It was a golden shower of animation.
Yeah.
I got lit on fire, and to help me out, they decided to piss on me to put it out. So
this is the remix edition. All right, so well, I didn't say anything.
But yeah, so I figured, you know what? Let's cleanse the palate and talk about good superhero shit.
I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah. So we're going to continue our talk about our... I've been calling these episodes the Watchmen Files.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, we're basically conducting character studies on each of the main heroes of Watchmen. So far we've done the Comedian, Silk Spectre, and Dr. Manhattan.
Yep.
And we've crossed over some of those onto the In the Gutters podcast.
Yes, we have.
I hear there's some bright young men running that one.
I think one of them's pretty cool. He's kind of talented, and he can draw. The other one's an asshole. That's just what I hear. I mean,
Well,
I wouldn't. I would actually myself. I wouldn't listen to that podcast.
If he's that much of an asshole, we should get him on this one.
Yeah. Well, you know, we've got to temper ourselves here. It's an asshole overload. Overload.
I mean, there's been a recent episode where you referred to me as an agent of chaos, so I don't know. I don't think there's much tempering us here.
That does not sound like something I would say. I appreciate you way too much to do something like that. Unless we're talking about your other co-hosts.
It wasn't quite as formal as saying I'm an agent of chaos. I think it was something like I'm a fucking nutcase or something.
Oh no, that sounds more like me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so we like back there when you called me a fucking nut, right? And say, you said, and stop acting like a fucking nut. It's like, what was the next thing I did, huh? Maybe it was when your ass was rotting in prison and I broke it out. That was kind of nutty, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we're saving the more important and the better characters, or I guess not necessarily the better, but like the characters we like, we're saving them for a little bit later, and the most important one to the plot we're saving for last.
But, you know, don't forget spoiler heavy.
This is very spoiler heavy, so, yeah, if you have not read the Watchmen comic, which I highly recommend before you see the movie, or if you haven't seen the movie, you know, go do that before listening to any of this.
Yeah.
And if you're just trying to like check out reviews or something to determine if you even want to read it, just go ahead and read it. It's an absolute must read.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. It really is. And I would say this: if you know the movie but you don't know the comic, take some time to read the comic.
Yeah,
it really is. It really is that important.
Mm-hmm. It's a very different experience. And to watch Alan Moore weave a tapestry out of this story is just incredible.
And if you haven't done either, then I would say definitely read the comic book. It's I think the movie is very well done. It doesn't capture everything, but I do believe the movie is very well done. But you get much more out of it watching the movie after you've read the comic book. I think it is that important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm very glad that I read the book before watching the movie. That made it much, much better. Yeah,
I agree. But then, of course, I'd read it a long time back when the one time I knew it. They were talking about making a movie. It was the one that Terry Gilliam was going to make, which what he planned on doing with the movie just. I don't like it at all.
But yeah, so today we are talking about Dan Dreiberg, also known as the Nite Owl.
Yes. Dreiberg is a very, very interesting character. We've touched on him a little bit just as we've been kind of going through and talked about everybody else. Mm-hmm. But again, following the theme that I have with that I see in this are people looking for father figures and mentors, somebody to look up to, to kind of help them with their, to kind of guide their path. And I think as we've been going through, we've actually been kind of like we're getting deeper and deeper into people who really needed that. Mm-hmm. So when we started off, we talked about a comedian who we don't really know much about, his whole past.
Right.
And then we went into Lori, who, she needed something, but she had her mom that was guiding her, but it wasn't her path. She was putting her on a path, but it wasn't necessarily hers. And then we go into Osterman again, who was someone that had a path, but then all of a sudden that was yanked from underneath him, and then he had to find a new one, and he ended up gravitating to the only thing he knew, So then now we get to Dreiberg, who is like the next step from them in a bad way, to where it's like, here's someone that really needed somebody to connect with, this mentorship, someone to really help guide him, and there wasn't anybody there, and he doesn't find that person until much later. Right. And I'm not gonna say it's too late, but at this point, the course of his life has already been set. Yeah.
So, and it's interesting. I think that not a lot of people relate to Dan in the same way that they do a lot of other characters. And we've talked about this on some of the previous episodes. That, a lot of people really like Rorschach because it's the black and white. There's pure good, there's pure evil, there's nothing in between. and I'm not going to compromise from that standard. And a lot of people really like Manhattan because it's like this dispassioned look of here's what reality is, here's what reality is composed of, and stuff like that. I don't see a lot of people who say that Nite Owl is their favorite character, but I think he has more in common with the typical comic reader than pretty much any other of the Watchmen character.
Oh, most definitely. I don't think most comic readers probably want to accept that.
Yeah.
Or acknowledge it. But he, almost in a sense, that you bring it up there, he almost in a sense represents like the comic reader.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the guy, almost in a sense, like, this is who you are. Like, this is you. If you're looking for a person to look at, to identify with in the comic book, this is that guy right there.
Right, yeah. And it's funny, I think it was during our Dr. Manhattan episode on, which I don't remember if that was on In the Gutters or in Our Moms Think We're Funny, but Wallcrawler asked, which Watchmen character would you want to be? And, we all threw out some suggestions, and he was like, oh, what, nobody wants to be Nite Owl? And I was like, he's this overweight, spoiled rich boy who's impotent, and it's like, no, I don't want to be freaking Nite Owl. But at the same time, it's like, the basic gist of his story that we get is that his parents were investment bankers, rolled in a ton of money, died, left him all this money, he just has a fortune, but he spent his entire childhood reading fantasy stories and fairy tales and sci-fi, and like later on became like a bird watcher of sorts. It's like he just had all the groundwork laid out to be like, yeah, I've got the money, I'll totally be a superhero.
Yep.
That's essentially what happened. He basically says, I was rich, I was bored, I needed to do something, and this was a good thing to do.
Yeah, he like when he's talking to Laurie, and it's he really is the stereotypical nerd. That's exactly what he is, because like the first thing he does is okay. Laurie and Dan used to be heroes. They used to fight side by side. So she knows who he is, and he knows who she is. And I'm not gonna say they don't have any secrets from one another, but she's like, oh yeah, you used to be a hero. We used to both run around and kick ass, right? So it's not it's not like she doesn't know all about him.
Right.
But when they're I'm trying to actually find the page right here when they first kind of talk. When she goes over to his house and they're talking and stuff, what's the first thing he does? To try to, after their dinner, and then she comes over. The first thing that he does to try to kind of get her to stay and like hang out with him a little bit longer. He's like, oh hey, let me take you in my basement and show you my toys. Look at all this really cool stuff. I'm like, dude, I know this. I've been inside this ship before. I've seen your other like owl like costumes and things. You're not impressing me here. But that's all he knows to do was like, oh, I'll try to impress her. But like, look at my really cool like nerdy stuff. And like, like that's not impressive to her because this is
actually the velocity of my outship.
Like she already knows all this.
Yeah. And I jokingly said that Dan is something of a simp in a previous episode, but really, you kind of see a lot of hints that, like, he clearly likes Laurie. He wants to get with her. Mm-hmm. And anytime she, makes mention of Osterman, he's always like, oh yeah, things okay with you and John? You guys aren't about to break up, are you? I don't think I can bear the thought.
But he also immediately withdraws. He's like, oh, it's like, so you're talking to me, so maybe there's something that can happen. She's like, yeah, because, John is like, oh, yeah, okay, well, let me just get back in my place here.
Yeah, yeah, he never makes a move on her. It's always her initiation.
Yeah, it's, like, for example, when she, when she's downstairs and she goes to light up a cigarette, and I think that might be the last time she tries to smoke, too. It's when she sets the basement on fire.
No, it's after that, because she talks about quitting, but then, after they do the fire thing and all that, and are talking about the jailbreak, she's smoking again, and he's like, oh, I thought you quit, and she's like, yeah, well, you really can't quit anything, it's just a longer break in between.
No, okay. In between, like, smokes, right?
Yeah. Dangerous Habits, I think they were specifically talking about. Where the hell is it?
So it's, yeah. So this was like the thing I was actually getting to. So he's like showing her all around, and she's looking at all of his different suits and stuff, and he's really trying to impress her. Like, look, I know John's smart, but I'm smart too. You know, so if you like smart guys, and this guy is emotionally unavailable, I'm smart and I am emotionally available, right? So
Come on, I'm a nice guy,
right? And then he's talking to her, and he's like, I'm finished here. I'll take you to the rear exit so you won't get dirty crawling under Archie. And she's like, Archie? And he's like, oh, it's short for Archimedes, Merlin's pet owl, and the sword in the stone. And so, yeah, it's like, that's the whole thing. All this stuff is like, I'm just a big nerd. And that's it. It's like, yeah, I'm just a big nerd. And he talks about just basically being a big nerd.
Yeah.
So this is actually going to what you were just talking about a minute ago. She says, you really were into all that knights in armor fantasy stuff as a kid. He's like, yeah, I guess it figures, being a crime fighter and everything, it was just this adolescent romantic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with adolescent romance. He goes, she said, I mean, this basement, it's enormous. Why not sell some of the old equipment and turn it into, a gym or something? Which is kind of an insult because, he has let himself go. He's gotten kind of like doughy and stuff. And of course, she lives with this like specimen of of man, and he's like already got one, and she's like, no, I don't. It's like, I don't know why you hang on to the stuff. Romance is over, and it's like yeah, I got a gem. I don't use it because, well, yeah, I don't really feel a need to, but but thanks for pointing out that I'm fat.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So she says, what got you into the business in the first place? And you were just talking about this. Well, I was rich, bored, and there were enough other guys doing it that I didn't feel so ridiculous. I guess Hollis was my hero when he was retiring. When he was retiring, when I was starting out, so I wrote and asked him if I cared on his name. Because I remember visiting his garage, and that first time I was awestruck. I mean, there I was hanging out with a real hero, being his friend and everything, being a crime fighter, like some part of a brotherhood. That's why I sort of regretted the crime busters falling through back in the 60s. It would have been like joining the Knights of the Round Table, being part of a fellowship of legendary beings. But eventually I realized the comedian was right, all this stuff. But there's another part where he talks about like his father and how like his father just couldn't, they didn't have the same interest.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was into all this stuff and his father wasn't. And so he didn't have this guy here that appreciated like his nerdiness, like all the stuff that he liked as far as like electronics and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think of the words, but yeah, they're getting bigger into technology, computers, and all that stuff, and then all the fantasy stuff, and the sword and sorcery, and I'm always curious, is like, did they have comic books in that world? Because
Tales of the Black Freighter.
No, I mean like superhero kind of stories, because you've got superheroes but would you?
Because in Under the Hood, Hollis says that what inspired him was Action Comics #1, because that came out, and then shortly thereafter, Hooded Justice started doing his thing, and Hollis started doing his thing, and then once superheroes became commonplace in this world, people just stopped reading the superhero comics.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like, are they still doing that? And then, like, after the Keene Act, when, like, okay, we had superheroes, now we're not going to have them anymore. It's like, would they, I guess they comics just weren't being printed, and they was like, we don't even want to really associate with that. We've had it, we don't like it.
Yeah, people were just sick of it. I think it died out before the Keene Act, though. I think it was just that, when it's real life, it's not as interesting,
Right.
So yeah, that's why like Tales of the Black Freighter and the Western comics and all that are so popular in the world of Watchmen.
So you've got Dan there, and he's like, I don't have anyone that I can connect to. And of course, being a nerdy kid, I'm sure he didn't have any friends in school. That's just not one of the things he had.
That just does not happen.
And then next thing you know, he was a nerdy kid with and does it say in here, and I apologize that I don't know, but it's saying here how old he was when his parents were killed or died?
I don't know. I don't think so.
But it was I think he was still fairly young though, wasn't he?
I think so.
So next thing you know, you're a nerdy kid with money, and you can then kind of like make some of your nerdy stuff. And then, like you said, here I was this rich guy, and I was kind of bored. I didn't have anything because I've got no one to connect to. Mm-hmm. And then my parents died. Both of my parents died when I was younger. So I don't have that mentor. I don't have that person that I can kind of like turn to and look at and be like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do now with my life. Mm-hmm. And I don't have someone that I can confide in because I'm a nerdy kid with no friends. And on top of that, I'm a rich nerdy kid,
Yep.
So it's basically like if Bill Gates wasn't married, like what would he, if he didn't have if Bill Gates didn't have the social skills he had, right, he would just be a rich loner.
Right.
But on the plus side, we probably have sex robots. Just saying. I'm just putting it out there.
Don't start that again.
I'm not starting anything. I'm just saying, it for a fact. The Windows operating system and all that stuff, we were like, that's exactly. If he wasn't married, if he didn't have social skills to be able to talk to women, tell me that's not the path it would have gone down.
I mean, I wouldn't want Windows sex robots, but yeah, I think we'd probably have it.
See? So, yeah, there you go.
So...
Yeah, can you change the name from Cortana? No! Cortana was the girl that, like, rejected him in high school. So then he, like, then he goes and, you said superheroes, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And then, like, the one hero he really likes is a Nite Owl.
Yeah.
And so what does he do? He's like, hey, you're retiring. Can I take on your name? And he's like, sure, kid. And I'm sure that Hollis likes him a lot. I'm sure that Hollis really likes him. Probably even thinks of him as a son he never had. Mm-hmm. But that when he originally became friends with him, it wasn't because he really liked this kid. It was the hero worship. That's what attracted him to him. And from there, we became friends. Yeah. But it was the hero worship that originally brought him in. And
and Hollis even says at his retirement party that they give him the trophy. And he's like, oh yeah, you see this? This almost makes me want to not retire.
Right.
And he does enjoy the praise.
So then, like, he becomes friends. He's like, oh, hey, here's a guy now that can help guide me on my path. I'm going to make all this stuff. And he approves of what I want to do. I say, hey, I want to use your name and fight crime. And he's like, sure, kid, go right ahead. I like you. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, thanks, Hollis. But again, is a guy looking for someone that he can confide in and that he can, lead or will help like mentor and lead him and guide him along. Mm-hmm. And in this case, it's like, here's something I want to do, and here's a guy that accepts what I want to do, where my father didn't because he didn't understand me.
Right.
And so I'm getting it. I'm getting it much too late in life, but I'm getting it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and he's definitely one of the more, like, orderly heroes. And, like, you see that during the riot scene where he's just, like, all he's trying to do is just get people to, like, no, just, do A, B, and C. We're trying to take control of the situation here. We're trying to, help this smooth over with a minimum of bloodshed. And when they do the fire thing, he's like, okay, everybody, come to this floor. We're going to just get you on the ramp. There's coffee downstairs. Like, he's all about doing things by the book. Which, with the original Nite Owl as his mentor, that makes sense, because the original Nite Owl was an ex-cop.
Yeah. I think you're like dead on right there. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. He wants so bad to be something, to be somebody, mm-hmm. And which I don't think he's ever felt was like he was somebody, and I think that really comes through when he's after. Well, I'll say this: when he and Lori first try to get it on, and then he can't because he's impotent. Mm-hmm. And which of course is like a metaphor for so much stuff, but the biggest part is that yes, I'm impotent not just sexually but also in life. Mm-hmm. Like I don't have anything to fight for. I don't have anything that makes me a man. I did at one time,
right?
Even when he was running the company and he made all this money and stuff, he still never felt like a man,
right?
But when he became the Nite Owl II. then he felt like a man. He felt like he was in control of stuff. And I think that's a part of it too. Like, he looks at the comedian, he's like, here's a guy that's in full control. Mm-hmm. He's the opposite of me.
And that goes back to what we've talked about with every other character. It's somebody who wants control. Mm-hmm. Everybody in Watchmen wants some element of control.
In this case, he and Laurie just want to kind of control their own life. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have it, and without that, he just feels like nothing. He's got a lot of money. He could live like a really great life, mm-hmm. but he doesn't. He just lives in this little tiny place. Even with all the money that he still has, he's got patents and stuff like that. He can even be making more stuff.
Yeah,
but he doesn't. It's almost like he's resigned. Like, this is the life that I have because because I'm not a man. I don't deserve anything better than just to live like this.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and going back to, he's so by the book, he wants to just do things in a neat, orderly way. So, of course, when they pass the Keene Act, well, it's legal, I have to retire now.
Right.
But that's what breaks him, and you can tell that's what really, that pushes him from being, cracked to being fully broken. Because when Rorschach's like, you want to know what happened to us? You quit. And you can just read the hurt on Dan's face, where he's just like, shit, dude.
Yeah, that's another thing, too. The only other person that Dan actually has as a friend is Rorschach.
Yep.
Hollis and Rorschach is the one person that nobody else can be around for whatever reason. And Dan considers him a friend. Yeah, it's... Because even when they fight later on, he's like, it's really hard to be your friend when you say stuff like this.
Yep.
But he considers him a friend. So the one person the only other person in the book outside of Manhattan that is impossible to connect with is the person he calls a friend.
Yep.
It's still someone that you can't fully connect with either. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and it was Moloch that they busted, right?
When?
No, Big Figure. Big Figure that they...
Yeah, because he puts Big Figure in prison.
Yeah, so they worked together for a while, and after the kidnapping, Rorschach became so out of control, and Dan is such a by-the-book guy that's when they stopped working together.
Well, I think the Keene Act is because, when they pass the Keene Act, there's that one panel where, say, everybody did this, and then there's a crumpled dead body on the ground with Rorschach's sign on it that says never.
Yeah.
It's
I love that. I love that. But they'd stopped working together before that, though, because during the riot, the comedians, whatever happened to you and Rorschach, he's like, he works on his own mostly these days. So,
and I wonder if that was more because of Rorschach or because of Dan. If Rorschach kind of pushed him away because he was going down a darker path, or because I can't see Dan pushing him away. I can see Dan holding on, even just loosely.
I think what we see in the interactions between Rorschach and Dan is that Rorschach really just has a way of being super critical of people and going, this is stupid. We could just go break this guy's arm and we get the information we need. Why would we turn him into the police? If we kill him now, then that'll just save them the trouble. And it's I think, especially after the kidnapping, that he probably just did that enough that finally Dan was like, you know what, we're not, we're not accomplishing anything now. Because Rorschach doesn't have a problem working with people as long as they just do things the way he wants them to.
That's true.
It's if you weren't a total pussy, we could have gotten something done by now, but...
I tell you, I have to see what chapter this is here. This is chapter 7, page 15. Panel 5. This is after, Laurie puts the moves on Dan, and they try to get it on, and then he can't because of his condition. Mm-hmm. Look at the expression on his face. It's like he's hurt all through, and it's like he's so embarrassed.
Yep.
God, that's... Again, the masters to Dave Gibbons for being able to really convey that. You can just see that he already doesn't feel like a man, but he feels less like a man there. He feels even less in control, and he's so embarrassed. Here it is, the girl I've been pining for so long. I finally get my shot.
Yep.
And I can't I can't make it happen in any way.
I love the TV narration in that scene too.
Oh yeah.
And he's down a perfect dismount. And it's funny, and I mean, I've talked about Dan being a simp and yada yada yada, but like you're kind of rooting for him to get with Lori. It's like you kind of want that for him, and even like the first time that she's there, like after she leaves John, he's like, "Oh, you can stay the night here," and her immediate response is to be like, "Oh, thanks, Dan. You're like a big brother to me." It's just like, poor Dan. Fuck, man.
But I wonder, because I'm not sure if it's really clear to Dan, like, what his problem is until that moment. Because when he has the dream, or the nightmare, I think that's when he realizes, like, what it is. Like, he gave up being a hero.
Yep.
And I know, and he liked it. He enjoyed being a hero and all that stuff, but I don't know if he was fully aware then that, like, this is why he's so inept.
Yeah.
Until that dream. So when he and Lori can't get it on, he's embarrassed, and he falls asleep, and they fall asleep together on the couch, and he has this nightmare where, like, he's with her, and they're taking off their clothes, and I think this is like the biggest thing right there. He's there, and she's in because they talked about it earlier. There's a picture of her, I think it's her, in this kind of like weird like bondagey outfit.
Oh no, I was going to bring that up. That was the Twilight Lady.
Okay, Twilight Lady.
Yeah.
There we go. I saw that, and then I was just doing here because it's him, and then there's the Twilight Lady, and she starts taking off his clothes, and then she they peel off each other's clothes, and then she peels off his skin to reveal like who he is underneath. Like, this is who you really want to be.
Yep.
And then
this is who you are on the inside.
Right. And then he peels off hers to see, like, it's not the Twilight Lady, even though she's like, as a young boy, this thing that I really wanted, but like, Lori, like, this is what I want. And then right as they're getting ready to get it on, the missiles fall, and then they're gone.
Such a beautiful page.
It is. It's fantastic. And that wakes him up out of this, the sleep, this cold sweat. And like, at that moment, I think he really understands. He's like, I gave up on being who I really was. Like, all my life, I wanted to be this person. I finally got the opportunity to be it. And then I let somebody else take it away from me.
Yeah.
I had control, and I let somebody take it away. And the thing is, they didn't even do any. They didn't beat me down and take it. Yeah. They just said, "Give it to me," and I said, "Okay."
Yeah. He didn't fight for what he wanted. He just rolled with it.
Yep. And then he goes downstairs, and he puts on the goggles that he had just shown to her earlier, and then that's what he says there. He goes, He tells her about the dream and says, "And in this war, the feeling that it's unavoidable, it makes me feel so powerless, so impotent." And I think that's another part of it is too that, like, we're right now, we're like, I think it goes from like, was it like 10 minutes to midnight or something like that to like 30 seconds to midnight. Well, at the end it gets basically to midnight, but it's like 30 seconds to midnight. And he's thinking to himself, like, I let this happen, like, because I gave up.
Yeah.
I helped lead to this thing where this is happening. And so now we're on the brink of war. I'm scared. Everybody's scared. The whole world's just going to probably get all blown to hell. And it's kind of my fault because I just gave up. As soon as someone said, "Don't," I said, "Okay."
Yep. And it's got to be especially hard for him because one of the few people that he respects, Rorschach, is like, he was the one who was like, "No, fuck that, I'm not gonna quit. Never, because I will not compromise." So it's like, he's got to know deep down, it's like, I could have done what Rorschach did. I could have just said never and just kept going.
So this is something I think is kind of interesting. I'm gonna go back and just double check here, but I like how here, like, Dreiberg says it's like, I can just feel this anxiety, this terror bearing down. It's like, I came down here for my costume. I don't know. I feel worried, confused. I just need to take to the air to blow away the cobwebs. Like, he comes down there, and I don't think he really wants to admit it to her, but he's like, I came down here to get my power back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what it was. I came down here to get my power back. And I think he didn't really want to necessarily maybe admit to her, like, I came down here because this is the only time I ever felt like a man.
Right.
And was when I was a hero, but he doesn't really want to say that to her.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because that shouldn't be the thing. It should, it's like the Spider-Man thing. It's like, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't have it, right? So this should not be what makes you a man. You should be a man without it. But we didn't talk about this before, and I think because there was this section is so Dreibergy. So if you can find a better word for that, you tell me. But she's like, well, why don't you go ahead and put on the suit and take Archie up for a flight, and just kind of just like clear your head,
Who's to know?
Yeah. So, and he's like, okay, because she's like, yeah, I understand, kind of how you feel about everything. You used to be one thing, and now you're not, and everything that's going on, you sometimes just need to just get outside and just clear your head. So what I find interesting here, and I'm just kind of going back, so I want to look at a couple things with Laurie when she comes, because he offers, he's like, hey, you can come stay at my place, and of course she turns him down, but then later on she this after they fight the Knot Tops, which is another thing we got to talk about too, because that's that scene where he starts to kind of feel that things like this is what it feels like,
Yeah.
I forgot all about all that. So I'm sorry. I'm looking at the thing where Dreiberg wakes up because Rorschach's in his apartment, and Rorschach goes, by the way, he need a stronger lock. That new one broke after one shove. Like,
yeah.
God damn it, we still breaking the locks on my door. It's like the second time. But again, he's Dreiberg. He could build a better locking mechanism if he wanted to.
Yeah. Isn't that where he's also like, hey, thanks for the cereal and the milk?
So after John leaves, he leaves the studio, goes to Arizona, and then goes to Arizona, and then goes to Mars. She goes back to their place, and they're packing up all of her stuff and putting it all in these like radioactive canisters. Like, for all we know, that like all this stuff is radioactive. We heard about all the people he gave cancer to, and they're packing it all up, and that's it. So like she can't get any of her stuff back. So what I find interesting here, though, is, and you probably might be able to explain a little bit as far as what I'm talking about, but what I find interesting here is she tells him to go, and they probably say take the suit out, and then she comes downstairs, and then we later see that she is in her costume.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, but why did you get that? When you went and packed up all your stuff, why did you get that thing that you hate?
She didn't pack it. They just sent all of her belongings to her.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
Because like the package shows up and Dan's like, "What's this?" She's like, "Oh, that's for me. Sorry, I used your address.
Gotcha.
This is all I have are these 2 boxes and a letter saying I don't have cancer."
So that's what I was looking for. I was like, because I know they didn't let her have her stuff, but then somehow she got that. But even still, like, why would she put that on? The thing that she hates, I mean, they could go up at Archie without her putting that on.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if it's like, oh, hey, just you put on the suit, make yourself feel good, and then we can just and take Archie up for a flight. But she puts that on.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to what I was talking about before, is like, she pushed back against her mom for everything she did, but when she was out there doing it, she actually did feel like she was in control of her life, because becoming a hero wasn't her choice, but what she did as a hero was her choice.
Yeah.
And then she's like, you know what? At this point, she's like, I got nothing else either. I don't have anything, because what I did have was like John and, being his wife and doing all that stuff, but now that's gone because he's gone. I don't have a place to stay. I'm staying with you, which is fine. That's great and all, but I don't, like, what do? I can't be a real, let's say, like, well, when we're not married, but I just can't be a regular, like, wife. I don't have any skills to get a job in the workplace. Like, what do I have? This is the only thing I have. And much like you, like, damn it, like, I actually kind of like it.
Right, yeah.
And even, so that's, and then she reveals that she's got the costume on. So I'm like, I think even she kind of was going down the same path as like, this is, I don't want to say this is when I felt alive, but she's like, this is when I felt kind of like you did.
Yeah. And she talks about why she'd put the costume on, and okay, it's not the conversation where she goes back to smoking. There's no such thing as quitting. There's just sometimes there's longer pauses between relapses. She says, was tonight good? Did you like it? Did the costumes make it good? So it must be in the next chapter. So it should be somewhere in chapter 8, if I'm thinking right. Yeah, here we go. It's chapter 8, page 5. She says, superhero saves world, huh? This is some elaborate scam to get me back into my costume, right? And Dan says, haha, Lori, the costume was your idea. And she says, what? That's ridiculous. I loathe that Halloween suit. Obviously, I wore it to help you. Now, that's, I think, is a case of the lady protesting too much, methinks, because obviously they both found some fulfillment in that emotionally.
So,
but her claim there is,
I did to help you.
Yeah.
But when we were just supposed to be taking Archie up. Like I told you, go ahead, put the suit on, because it probably wouldn't feel right to take Archie up without having the suit on, right?
Yeah.
So to go ahead and take Archie up. When she comes down in the coat, he doesn't know what she's wearing underneath. And so for her to put that on was completely necessary. Then they happen to hear about the tenement fire.
Yep. And then she skins out of the coat.
Right. So you can't say you put that on for me when we were just supposed to be going up, just flying around, just like, oh, this is great. Now we'll go ahead and take Archie home. No, you put that on. And because it's after saving those people that he's like, wow, I did something. Because they talk about that as like, we did something. This is kind of like what we used to do. And it wasn't just taking Archie up. It was taking him up and then doing something great that gave him his power back. And then that's when they have sex for the first time.
Yeah.
If there hadn't been that fire, they would have taken it up, they would have come back down, and he probably would have actually felt worse about himself because he's like, this is what I missed, and I didn't do anything. It's like, this is what I missed. And even now I'm like, okay, I took it out for a spin, now I'm going to come back home.
Right.
You know? And then it's like, oh, I wish you could be in my costume again.
While he's helping the people in the fire, he's saying, oh, I'm fine. I'm just fine. And he's like all grins. And back on this conversation at page 5, he says, "Own up, Lori. Doesn't this bring all those old times flooding back? Night patrols having a secret, and since we're." And so Lori says, well, yeah, patrols were okay. I had 9 different routes over Washington's rooftops. Route 5 was the best. So, I mean, for both of them, it's like, I think they missed having a purpose. Definitely more so for Dan. And I think for Dan, it goes back to, this is him relating to Hollis. This is, that is his father figure, and it's like, I wanna make Dad proud.
Yep. And
then he didn't even fight to keep it. They passed the Keene Act, and he was like, yeah, okay, here, I'm just gonna retire. You guys can't have my identity, but, I'll just retire. And so I feel like he thinks that he's failed Hollis in a lot of ways, too.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It's kind of interesting. You don't really see a lot of it, but like when you see Dan and some of the other scenes early on, he's this kind of like button down guy, kind of dresses, kind of schlubby, but is like, I'm going to wear my tie and my sweater and all this.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see a lot of scenes with him, like individual scenes. The book actually moves pretty fast.
Yeah.
So you don't see a lot of scenes with him just kind of like outside of the costume. But after that scene, still in that, where we're just looking at chapter 8,
mm-hmm.
and by the way, chapter 8, pages 4 and 5, I love the panel layout there. So first off, the panel layout for 4, you've got 3 long panels up top, but those long panels depict one scene as she's walking across the room.
Mm-hmm.
That's so well done.
It's very Ditko.
And then you've got the 3 bottom panels. When we cut over to page 5, it's the 3 bottom individual panels, and then the last 3 are long panels, again, still depicting a shot of them actually walking across the room. That inverse there is kind of awesome. Plus, on the middle panel, I guess panel 5 on page 5, where you've got the camera, the screens for the cameras, and you can see each of them on the different things as it's like as the cameras are like each one has a different like fixed point.
Yeah.
So you see like a long shot of them, a close shot up of them. That's really nice. Such great panel work. That's awesome. But in this one, we see him like he's almost like he's back in his element. Like he's just wearing just kind of like just pants and like a t-shirt. He's not wearing the tie thing. He's not all buttoned down. He's much more relaxed and loose. Now we do see him in the next scene where he puts a sweater on, but he's much more relaxed and loose and just like, here I am.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah, you see like the real change in his character there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really kind of cool. But just like you said, like she says one thing, but she's not really telling the truth, because I don't think but one thing we know is that she doesn't want to, and I think we miss a lot of this when we were talking about her before, but she doesn't want to admit or acknowledge certain things.
Yeah.
One thing she doesn't want to admit is she enjoyed being in the costume for whatever the reasons are, because that admits that her mother was right.
Right.
She doesn't want to do that. She still wants to be like, you forced me into this thing. It doesn't matter whether I liked it or not. It doesn't matter if I was good. You forced me into it, so I'm not going to acknowledge it. Not only to you, but I'm not going to acknowledge to myself that I liked it. I said, when the Keen Act passed, it was the greatest thing that ever happened. I could get away from that costume. But then she uses any excuse she can to put it back on.
Right, yeah.
But then she still doesn't want to admit that she enjoyed it.
Right, yeah.
And the only time that she actually gets around to that point where she can say, this is who I am, this is what I enjoy, is after Mars.
Mm-hmm.
When Dr. Manhattan's like, oh, hey, you need to confront some things from your past,
Right.
I kind of feel, well, I don't know if you're supposed to feel this way, but I kind of feel like they were, even though they may not really know it, but they were kind of meant for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they fulfill each other in ways that like no one or nothing else really can. And that kind of goes back to what we talked about in the Dr. Manhattan thing, where the only times you really see him smile in the book is the first time she goes to see Dan and the last time he sees her with Dan.
Right.
Where it's like he knows that Dan is who Laurie needs.
And what's interesting about that is that if Dan and her had made any forward movement prior to this moment here, it wouldn't have worked out.
Right.
And I think that kind of goes into the whole, like, I don't want to call it fate, but the whole, like, this is how things are supposed to be, and they have to play out in this order.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that Manhattan already knows.
Yeah.
But it's like, you had to go through this, because neither one of you would have been in a position to be able to accept who you really are and what makes you happy. Because he knows, like, Dan knows that being the Nite Owl makes him happy, but he doesn't know exactly why it makes him happy.
Right.
But you have to go through this whole period here, and then you realize, oh, this is why it makes me happy. This is why I want to be it. This is why I can't stop being it.
Right. Yeah.
I have to drop a little bit of a spoiler. I don't know if you It's just for the TV series.
I have no idea when I'm ever going to watch the TV series.
Okay. So, what do you know about TV series before I drop a spoiler into that?
Jack Diddley.
Okay.
I know that it rains squids.
Okay. And where are we at? We might be a good time to take a break.
We are 50 minutes in.
Okay. So yeah, let's take a break here,
Okay.
and then we'll come back.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, and when we come back, we're going to go into going to do a small little spoiler for the Watchmen TV series. So, I'll try to give you some kind of a lead in. All right, we'll be right back. All right, hey, welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
So, I said that we were going to kind of now we're back. We're going to do a little bit of a lead in for the Watchmen TV series, and so let's. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So let's give like a nice little, I don't know, maybe a 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Okay, so in the Watchmen TV series, which I thought it was really good series that was very well done. You know, kudos to you, Lindelof. I got no real complaints with it at all. In that we see a lot of things that are going on, and this is some of the stuff that I saw that I was like, hey, that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's I'm trying to think if he was a governor that goes to this FBI agent and says, like, hey, I want you to go out to this town here, and I want you to go to Tulsa and look into this police chief that was killed, and they were hanged, and figure out what's going on there. And so when he goes and talks to her, he's looking, and he goes over, and she has this owl in a cage. And I forget her name. Anyway, it's played by Jean Smart, who was in the Legion TV series,
Mm-hmm.
and who was in Designing Women, among all kinds of stuff. She plays the role so well. She's fantastic. But anyway, what you find out is that this is Lori, so Silk Spectre. She's now an FBI agent. She hates heroes, so whenever anybody pops up and want to be a hero again, she's like, this is against the Keene Act, you're not supposed to be doing this, I'm going to take you down. So essentially she hates him, but she takes him down.
Right.
And this guy's talking to her, and he's like, and he goes over and he's looking at this owl she has in a bird cage, and I forget what the owl's name is, but he's talking to her, and he's like, hey, if you do this for me, then he's like, maybe I can like pull some strings and maybe get your owl out of the cage. And this is like episode 2, I think.
Mm-hmm.
In episode 1, we see the police like going after these people, and of course the police wear masks because this whole deal. I'm not going to get into the TV series because that's its own thing.
Right. But
the police have this flying airship that looks very similar to Archie. Plus, there's a part where the one character, what's her name, Mother Night, where she puts on these goggles. They give her kind of like night vision.
Uh-huh.
I think did you give her either night vision or X-ray vision. I think it might be X-ray vision. Anyway, when you start to put the pieces together, Lori doesn't go by Yuspetchik. She goes by Blake.
Yeah.
So she's fully accepted who she's the daughter of.
Right.
The police have what looks like I said, this airship that looks a lot like Archie's design.
Mm-hmm.
And then the woman's got the X-ray goggles. And I'm gonna say I didn't look any of this stuff up. So there could be something out there where there's like, Lindelof's like, that's exactly what it is. But anyway, when he refers to the owl in the cage, he's talking about Dan being in prison.
Right. Yeah.
Because as we see here, once Dan gets, his mojo back, he doesn't want to let it go.
Right. Yeah.
And my belief is that he continued to be a hero.
Mm-hmm.
He got caught. He got thrown in jail. They confiscated all of his technology,
mm-hmm.
which is why they have some of it now.
Yeah.
And so he's like, maybe I can get basically Dan out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also why now she's an agent. Because like, almost those things like, hey, we caught him, but we didn't catch you doing anything.
Right.
So, work for us or work with us. And she probably does have, I think she does have like a really big kind of a hate for heroes because it's like Dan couldn't give it up.
Right.
And it got him in the situation and left me alone.
Right.
And it's like, being a hero has been a horrible experience, except for, you know, there's a lot more to her than just that. It's really, like I said, the series is fantastic, but that's really kind of cool. So when we're looking at this, when we're looking at him, and he's like, this whole thing is like kind of like, I can't give it up. Now she can, and she doesn't mind missing out on parts of her life. But for him, he's like, I'm not a man unless I'm doing this.
Right.
Like, my whole life I was searching for the thing that was going to make me a man. Being a hero is it. And now that I've really come to terms with that, I can't give that up.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, even for Dan, I've got the woman I've always wanted to be with. And if I'm not a hero, I can't keep her.
Right.
Because if I'm not a hero, I'm not a man. I'm back to being that guy before.
Right.
You know?
The slob.
Yeah. So it's almost like, I have to do this for you. And it's like, but I don't want you to do this, but you can't have me. I can't have you, and you can't stand to be with me if I'm not this guy.
Right.
Which is kind of horrible. It makes me wonder if maybe, like, he was doing this without her knowledge. He was going out at night without her knowledge.
Maybe.
And that's what would be the thing that would make her, like, kind of haze, like, why would you do this? Why would you put our relationship in danger?
Mm-hmm.
And why would you not tell me?
Right.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I think the series is well done. I would have to imagine that he read this book over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
Took copious notes. And
I mean, I could only imagine from everything I've heard about the show.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome. Like I said, I really, really, really dug it. So, but yeah, I like Dan because Wallcrawler and I have had conversations like this before about being a hero and what it means to be a hero, and kind of like why we read comic books, and like why comic books are important to us, why it was an important part of our growing up, which is, you know, like most people that read comic books or read superhero comic books, you have this kind of this belief in a kind of like doing the right thing, looking out for people, you know, helping people, you know, wanting to make things better, and that by doing that, like you always hope that good is going to win out and save the day.
Right. Yeah.
That's your belief. Now, you don't honestly think that that's always going to happen, but the belief that, you know, that I have to believe that it's going to win majority of the time. Because if I don't believe that, then I got nothing to hold on to. You know?
Right.
And so that's where we read comics. We want to read stories where people face insurmountable odds and they fight till they got nothing left in them, and you know, and then they win. You know, most of the time they win. You know, and it makes us feel good about being the people that we are. It's like, you know, don't give up. You know, always fight. Always try to do what's right, and doing what's right is what's going to make things better. And so we like that aspect of it. And Dan is this kind of this guy. He's like he's the one that's kind of like us. He wants to make things better. He wants to be a good guy. He wants to be a hero. He wants to save the world. You know, he wants to help people.
Yeah.
And he's more like the reader. He is the reader, whether you want to accept it or not, because not say everybody, but when you look at yourself as a comic book character, people envision themselves as Captain America, but they don't envision themselves as Steve Rogers before he becomes Captain America.
Right, yeah.
And they really kind of, that's who you have to be. And when you're looking at this, you want to be Manhattan, but really who you are is Dan Dreiberg.
Right.
And then you become the Nite Owl because you want to do what's right.
Right. So, yeah. I'm just looking through the last chapter here to see if there's anything else that really stands out about the character, but I think we've summarized it pretty well.
And I was going to say the one other thing that I think is really interesting about Dreiberg is, and we've talked about this. I know you and I have talked about this like several times before. Is with Dreiberg, there's that scene. You know, that scene when they go and he and Rorschach and well, first off, like it's so heartbreaking when he finally gets everything that he needs, right? He's rescued Rorschach, and now like hey, because they're still under the belief that there's a mass killer out there. Let's go get the mass killer, and he's like, hey, I'm back, I'm back, it's like this is it, and then all of a sudden there's that flash of light, and there's Dr. Manhattan. And she's like, oh, I'm just going to go away. He's like, no, because if you go away with him, like, I can't let you go. Because if you go away with him, you're not going to come back. I don't think you're going to come back. Because, even though I'm starting to get my power back here, right? Like, if you go away with him, he's still so much better than I am in every way.
Right.
Even though he's emotionally distant, though, but he's got everything else. Like, like 9 out of 10 ain't bad. And as soon as she disappears with them, like, he's gone. He's like, I got no reason to be a hero again.
Right.
I don't. It's all gone. But then, the everything with he and Rorschach, they go out there, and then Hollis gets killed.
Yeah.
And when Hollis gets killed, and he finds out about that, like, he loses his shit, which is the absolute. I mean. It's a horrible scene. It really is, but it's the absolute best when he loses it, because he's like it's a part of him that you haven't seen before, and it's like the one thing I had this. I get to start showing Hollis I'm a hero again. Like, I gave up on it, but now I get to go bed like, hey, Hollis, look, I'm going to be the Nite Owl again, right?
Yep.
Aren't you proud of me?
Yep.
And he doesn't get a chance to do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, almost he's like, you killed my dad. He's like, you killed me.
Right.
And he loses his shit on that guy, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And what's even more beautiful is Rorschach.
Not in front of civilians. We have the knowledge that we wanted.
Right. Yeah, I love that. It's so awesome because he's like Rorschach just kind of you and I talked about this when he's like this is who I am. This is who you are. You should never be who I am.
Right.
There's a reason why I do what I do. And it's like, and you're that balance, you're that perfect balance to me. And it may kind of like infuriate me at times because of this, but having a bunch of me's running around doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
There needs to be someone like you. And he stops him, and it's like, Rorschach is so aware of that.
And then like immediately thereafter, when they leave the bar, Rorschach's like, well, this supports the mass killer theory. And he's like, for God's sake, Rorschach, let it go. And he's like, oh no, I'm just saying, if we find the mass killer, you can have revenge for Mason's death. It was meant to comfort you. And he's like, how's that supposed to comfort me? But then, even in the midst of like this greatest tragedy, Dan still says, yeah, okay, thanks, Rorschach, really, thank you. It's like, even then he realizes, like, I can't go off on Rorschach for this. Because he just doesn't get it. Rorschach is knucking futs.
Okay. But it was for Rorschach or so. But is Rorschach really crazy? I mean,
we'll talk about that next episode.
Yeah, he's definitely off the he's got some threads missing on his.
Yeah, Rorschach. I wouldn't go so far as to say he's crazy, but I would say he's unhinged.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But I would say here's another thing about Dan, when Rorschach says, been lazing around a long time, maybe you forgot how we do things, and then Dan just goes off, he's like lazing, and listen, I've had it. Like, who the hell do you think you are? You live off people while insulting them. Nobody complains because they think you're a goddamn lunatic. You know how hard it is to be your friend? In the very next panel, he's like, look, Rorschach, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Like, he immediately backs down. He's like, yeah, all this stuff is true, but I shouldn't say it. To keep it all to myself, because the last thing I want to do is lose another friend.
Right. Yeah, I love that interaction between those two, and then Rorschach shakes his hand, but it's for a little bit too long, and Dan has to kind of pry his hand off of him. It's like, okay, let's just move on, buddy.
And I think that's a great thing, because it kind of shows that Rorschach needs his friendship just as much as he needs his.
And Rorschach knows it.
Yeah.
So this has nothing to do with Dan, really, but there's just so much good stuff hidden in the panels here. Have you noticed on this last chapter when the squid comes, the part from the Institute for Spatial Studies that isn't covered in paint says, "or all die"?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I'd totally forgotten about that.
God, there is so much stuff in this. It's crazy. I won't say insane, but it's crazy.
Yeah, Dave Gibbons is insanely good.
Yeah. And we talked about one of the previous episodes about Alan Moore scripting, but that whole thing where if he's scripting like that and he's putting that kind of detail in there, and you're laying out the page, you have to really think about, okay, he wants all this stuff in there. So if he wants the titles of these books on there, I've got to make sure that those books are visible and big enough so that the letterer can make those legible. If he wants this thing in there, I've got to make sure that not that all these things are just in there, but they're in there and legible, so that you can see, read, or whatever it is. Even if it's just like a background thing, like when I pointed out in that one thing where it says like the clock on the wall behind this, just a regular clock is like 10 minutes to midnight. Now, I've got to make sure that's clear, not just there, but there and clear. So it's insane. So as a writer, I mean, Alan Moore does a fantastic job, but to translate what he wrote and put it in there is just as good.
Yeah,
here's this thing. Like we're seeing the giant squid there and the end panel, and like the one movie theater showing the day the Earth stood still. When aliens come down to be like, oh hey, we're tired of your shit. Stop your wars, or else, and that's just there. I mean, that's a really obvious nod, but at the time this came out, The Day the Earth Stood Still is like a black and white movie from like the 50s, and I only knew it at the time because it's one of my mom's favorite movies, so we watched it a couple of times. So I was familiar with it, but looking at that, like, oh, what's this about? The movie? Okay, it's about this. It's about aliens coming down and saying, hey, because you know the movie?
I know of it.
Okay.
I know what it's about, yeah.
So this alien comes down and he lands a spaceship and he goes out there and he's got this giant robot behind him, Gort, and he comes down and he says, and he's going to address the people, and the army is all gathered around there, and he goes to pull out this device and they shoot him. And the device was like it's like a universal translator or something like that. Anyway, it was something, and they shoot him. And then Gort raises the visor and he starts like shooting these beams and just evaporating like the military's like tanks and stuff like that. And anyway, so at the very end, he's going to go, he basically has the one girl that's helping him to like sneak aboard his spaceship and talk to Gort and deliver the message like Klaatu Barada and Nikto. Anyway, it doesn't freeze time, but basically it kind of like stops everything electric like all over the world. Like nothing runs or anything else. And I forget for how long it is. And then he's like look, this is the kind of power we have. It's like, I came here to offer you like a message of like hope and peace and the from other planets, because there are other alien worlds out there. Yours is the most violent, and it's like, this is a chance for you guys to change your ways and to change your behavior, because we can't let what you're doing spill out into the rest of the galaxy. So change your ways, stop being so violent, stop being these warmongers, or else we're gonna. He just says, or else we're gonna wipe you guys all out of the other universe. That's it. This is your only warning. And the thing is, he comes here to deliver a message of peace. The first thing to do is shoot him. Is like, okay, fuck you guys. So like, that's it. It's like, I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, but you know what? You can kiss my alien ass.
You know what? On second thought.
And so, and that's, I'm like, that's exactly what this is right here. It's like, oh, hey, I'm going to give you a threat from outer space that is going to show up there. And even though the message isn't stop doing this or else, it's like, oh, hey, you guys need to stop fighting.
Right.
Here's an alien message that says stop fighting. because or else you're going to kill yourselves.
So another thing, I love this. Like, it's like a 4-page spread, right?
Oh yeah, it's huge.
It's a massive spread. Oh no, it's a 5-page.
I almost want to get a copy
6.
of Watchmen and then like rip all these pages out and just put that whole big picture together.
But yeah, like on page 4, so it is a 6-page spread. But yeah, on page 4, there's a diner, but the E is covered up, or the R is covered up with the telephone pole, and there's a pillar of smoke covering up the N, so you just see die on the wall.
For Gunga Diner.
Yeah. Of course, all the street signs saying one way. And I never noticed that there was, like, Rorschach blots everywhere from where the prison psychiatrist died.
Oh, yeah, and his briefcase blew up everywhere.
Yeah, so there's, like, Rorschach stamps.
Oh, shit.
Of course, the Promethean Cab Company bringing light to the world. There's so much to this.
So if you go to page 5 of that, where you got the Promethean Cab Company, if you look right there, there's I can't tell if it looks like a vehicle, but it says Gordian. That's the Gordian Knot and Lock Company, the people that repaired Dan Dreiberg's locks.
And of course, you have the spray-painted silhouette of the couple kissing, which is very frequently repeated throughout the series. It's just like a tag that the Knot Tops use, but this is basically the equivalent of touching off the Hiroshima bomb.
Yeah. And
there are the shadows of people who were hit by the nuke, just like that. Of just people interacting and going about their business throughout the day, and then they're just vaporized onto the wall. So, God, it's so good.
I love how you point out this thing with the one-way sign, which is, it's like the path you're headed down only ends one way.
Mm-hmm.
It's masterful, man. I love and I also hate that you have to read it so many times to pick up on stuff, because the first time you read it you're so invested in the story, the second time you read it you're so invested in the story, and then you learn new things, but then afterwards you have to like read it and then it's like let me look at everything else that's there that's telling this story to me.
Like let me really take this in.
Oh, okay. Look at page 6.
Yeah.
Read that newspaper there. Not the one that says war, the one underneath it.
Oh, the Vite method?
What does it say?
I will give you bodies beyond your wildest imaginings. Holy shit. And of course, directly below that book is the smiley face pin.
Oh yeah, it's the energy thing, but with the plugins and then the thing on it, it looks just like the smiley face pin. That's
so freaking good, man. It's so good.
God, it's amazing. This is just freaking it's almost indescribable just how good this is.
Yeah, it's really hard to put into words. It's kind of like Old Boy, where it's like, it's hard for me to explain why you need to watch it, but trust me, you need to watch it. And it's the same thing with Watchmen. It's like, it's kind of hard for me to explain why this is such an important book, but just read the damn thing. Just read it.
So, one other thing I want to do, since we kind of steered away from Dreiberg a little bit.
Just a bit, yeah.
We talked about, our favorite characters, and as much as I don't want to say I love Rorschach, but I love Rorschach. Rorschach's, he's got so much going for him than just the surface level stuff.
I freaking love Rorschach.
But I'm going to say this, and I could be completely wrong, but I think that Zack Snyder likes Nite Owl. I think he really likes Nite Owl. And the reason I'm going to say that is if you read through the book, Nite Owl's got some interesting scenes and stuff. He does, he's kind of cool. But in the movie, they really make Nite Owl shine.
Oh, yeah.
So like when we're talking about the riots, when he and the comedian are there, dude, when comedian jumps down and he starts attacking those people, that's an awesome scene. But when he drops out of Archie and the cape flares out and he lands, that's so badass. The prison fight with him and
God,
Spectre,
the prison fight.
That is like the shit. And dude, one of my favorite scenes, and the music is just so. The trailer alone for that one is just like when they show that scene, it's so fucking awesome. Is when Archie bursts out of the water.
Oh yeah,
that is so badass. I love that. I mean, he really makes Nite Owl stand out, and it's like. it's like, this is the guy. Because out of everybody else, he really is the guy, he's the one true hero. Rorschach's a nut job. Manhattan's just, he's not even here. You know, Veidt's this guy. He's this guy. Like,
Veidt's Veidt.
Right. Laurie is still grappling with the whole, I don't want to be a hero, I want to be a hero thing. This is the guy that says, like, I want to be a hero. I've always wanted to be a hero. And given the chance, like, bam, check me out. It's he really is. It's like this is your everyday. This is your every guy hero right here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not going to give up like Captain Metropolis. That was like, whoa, you're burning my math.
Right.
You know, he's not going to go like nuts like the Mothman or
yeah.
Moth. And whatever happened to Dollar Bill?
He was chasing a robber out of the bank, and his cape
that's right, got caught in the revolving door. And it's like,
I mean, which is what you get when you don't have your costume
no
designed by
capes.
Edna.
So yeah, he's the guy that's smart enough, and he's in it for all the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like,
yeah, I think he's probably got the purest heart out of any of the others.
And I think that Snyder, like, I think he really likes him, and it's like, this is the guy that should shine, you know?
Yeah.
This is the one. And he makes him really, really stand out and be like, check him out. Like,
yeah.
And he is badass. He is a badass all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
very
much
as
so.
As the Nite Owl, he's badass all the way through.
Yeah, very, very much so. So, yeah. So we've been going for about an hour 15. These have been some long episodes, but I'm liking it.
Well, I mean, you're talking about 12-issue comic book
Mm-hmm.
where even though, like, there's certain issues that are devoted primarily to a particular character, you still get to see more of them as you go through it. And I think that's one thing I like about the Watchmen.
Yeah.
Is that you find, even as you're moving through, and you say, okay, I think I got a pretty good grasp of who this character is. As you move through, you find a little bit more about them, and you see other parts of them, and again, how they're seen by others.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that, and it's not one of those things where it's like, well, I thought this guy was the good guy all the time, and now you're telling me it's the bad guy. It's like no, it just really kind of enhances, like what you know about him, or just reinforces like this knowledge about that you know, or you feel you know about him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool, man. So you can't really just be like, oh, we can just sum all this up in like half hour.
Yeah, can't happen.
There's too much. So yeah, he's Dreiberg, like Nite Owl is kind of awesome, and he represents. I think he does a really good job of representing the everyman and the desire to be, you know, more than who you are, who you really think you could be if given the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I like it.
I kind of, I'm not trying to make this to another thing, but I kind of find it interesting that Nite Owl is Batman only without the tragic past. He still loses both of his parents. He has his mentor. He has his Alfred, but doesn't come until later in life. He's got the money. He's got all of that, and he does make a Batman like suit and does that kind of thing. But he's like, for him, unlike Batman, he's much more. I don't want to say relatable, but
grounded.
Yeah, I would say grounded. Where
Batman's very extremist, and Dan is not.
Right, and where Batman is like, I do this I do this because of my pain.
Mm-hmm.
Dan is like, I do this to make things better. Yeah, Batman's trying to make things better, but he's driven by his pain. Like, I don't want anyone else to feel like this. Mm-hmm. He's just like, I just want to make things better.
Right.
And the thing with Dan is, yes, he's had everyone has bad days, but Dan's never had a bad day. You know, his parents died, yes, but he's never had a bad day in his life.
Right.
You know, he's been taken care of. He's never had like a really rough bad day because this thing happened, or like, you know, whatever it is. He's had a really good life for the most part. And he's like, but I could make things better for other people too.
Right. Right.
And that's his sole goal.
Yeah, like, why should I be the only one who's happy?
Even though he's not happy, but the reason he realized that he's not happy is because he's not doing what he wants to do.
Yeah, he's not doing what makes him happy.
Right. So he's, we talked about yesterday, like, well, who you want to be and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm still going to stick with Dr. Manhattan. Did I pick Manhattan or did I pick Vite?
I think you ultimately went with Manhattan.
Yeah. And the reason I think I shied away from Vite is because of that Thanos quote. It's like, you're not the only one in the universe cursed with knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was like, it's having knowledge in a world where people don't have the same knowledge. Like it's frustrating. Mm-hmm. So, because Wallcrawler and I talked about that with the character of Vandal Savage in DC, where he was a Neanderthal that like this glowing rock crashed into the earth and this meteor, and it was warm, so he went curled up beside it and fell asleep because of the warmth. And he woke up, he was smart, but he was and I'm not saying he was super intelligent, but he was, let's say, 6th grade intelligence to a bunch of Neanderthals.
Right.
But then as they got smarter, he got smarter, so he still always stayed like generations ahead of them. And so it makes it almost impossible for you to find someone to connect with or to have any kind of conversation with. And then ultimately you just you kind of give up on them. And I think that's where Vite is.
Yeah.
So that's why I wouldn't want to be him, Manhattan. But then if I really had to say, I would say that that Dan is a very close second to Manhattan.
Yeah.
For me.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
So. Alright, so thanks everyone for joining us for another one of our Watchmen discussions, episode 4. Yeah. My name is Turk182. And you can always find me here on Our Moms Think We're Funny. You can also find me on the Comic Book Podcast In the Gutters, where hopefully you've already listened to 2 episodes of our Watchmen Files. Yeah. And Wallcrawler One and I talk about comic books and comic book related things and try to be basically all things comic books. Really just kind of talking about comic books in a very somewhat positive way and basically celebrating what's great about comic books because it's what we love. You can also find me on places like Twitter and Instagram at Turk182_KE. And I think that's all I have to say.
All right. And I'm Acomi. You can find me pretty much anywhere on social media at Acomi Draws. And, outside of this podcast, that's pretty much it. That and my art.
Oh, and did you get all your Inktober stuff posted?
Not on any of my art accounts, just on my personal. So I'm really far behind on that. But yeah, I did Inktober. I did it. I drew it all. I stayed mostly on schedule.
Yep.
So it'll be on there at some point.
Yeah. And when we the past couple episodes that we posted, we talked about some of the upcoming things, and of course by the time the episodes got posted, these things already passed. Like the con that was in Roanoke,
Big Lit
Con. That of course we're like we'll be there, but that was already over by the time that got posted. And of course we found out within the past 2 weeks that the GalaxyCon Raleigh has officially been canceled for this year and won't return until July of next year. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I think they are still hoping to do GalaxyCon Richmond sometime in the spring or late winter, early spring 2021. Don't know any more about that, but once we find out more about it, we'll be there. I figured I'd go ahead and just drop that out there because we never did kind of really acknowledge that. Like, oops, yeah, we're saying all this stuff that's already happened and and we weren't there. So that's it. And of course, if you really, really, really need to get a dose of us, you can always find us here. And thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah, bye.
Zang, yo.
All right there, folks. That was Our Moms Think We're Funny. Let's give them a hand.